Welcome to The Business That Pays with Adam Tolliver from Artisan Financial Strategies, where we mind the business that pays you. In this podcast, we empower successful families and business owners to make informed decisions about their finances through courageous conversations. Through his expertise as a practicing investment advisor representative with Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor, Adam teaches you how to create a wealth ecosystem by combining a practical technical framework with your personal, family, and community values. Join us for this journey where Adam normalizes sustainable wealth building and gives you the keys to make courageous, proactive financial decisions.
Welcome back to the podcast, The Business That Pays. Now, this is the second episode in Adam Tolliver's two-part series in which he reviews 10 financial must-dos for 2021. Adam is with Artisan Financial Strategies, and in part one, he covered the importance of a household budget, financial calendar, and reviews of your employee benefits, insurance coverage, and even beneficiaries. I'm Patrice Sikora, and in this episode, Adam takes it all a step further, starting with your estate plan. Adam, come on, that sounds rather upper crust, doesn't it? What do you mean when you say estate plan?
You know, Patrice, this is absolutely one of the biggest misnomers in general in financial planning. But with estate planning, people often say, well, I don't have anything, so I don't know what the big deal is. And people assume that you have to be, or you need to be rich or have a lot of assets in order for this to be important. And that's just simply not the case. The goal of estate planning is to leave clear instruction about how the things that you own will flow, who they will flow to, and who has permission to do what on your behalf in the event that you are not capable of making a decision or executing a task. There are 4 basic estate planning documents, and most of us need to have at least 2 of the 4 in place at a given time.
Okay.
You've got your last will and testament. You've got your durable power of attorney. You've got healthcare power of attorney, and then you've got an advance directive. A caveat on the last will and testament is that in some cases, it may make sense to do a revocable trust as opposed to a last will and testament.
What's the difference?
So the main difference is a last will and testament. A will is a public document. And as such, it's basically a ticket to go to probate court. In some states, that's not a big deal. In other states, that can get to be a little bit more complex and may be worth trying to bypass. A trust is a private document. When someone passes away and there's a will in place, the estate has to announce that will, typically in the local newspaper, so that anyone who may have some reason to speak up or make claim to something in the estate has the opportunity. You can say that this was publicly announced. It can be looked up after the fact as well, right?
Okay.
With a trust, you are able to guard yourself, create a veil, so you have more control. On the front end, a trust is more expensive because of that sort of the legwork to put that language in place, the documents for the estate planning attorney.
Right.
A will is going to be less expensive, and estate planning attorneys tend to make more money on the back end when they're doing the actual litigation in probate court.
Well, is there always litigation though?
No, absolutely not. And that's what I mean by in most states, having a will and going to probate court is not that big of a deal. Typically, it can be a pretty clean process. So it varies state by state, which is why it's important to have an estate planning attorney who's localized and keeps up with what's happening in your state as the laws change and evolve over the years.
Other than the quote unquote kind of secrecy, what goes into putting together a trust?
With a trust, it really just depends on the nature of what you may be looking to protect. As you're doing that, typically the process goes, you work with an estate planning attorney, and they're going to have you fill out some sort of questionnaire to ground the conversation. Most of the time, estate planning attorneys are not charging you hourly. They're charging you by the document when it comes to establishing your documents. And whether or not someone needs a trust can be sussed out through these questionnaires that get an idea of how many different assets are we dealing with, how many different titlings and stakeholders. So are you dealing with a larger family, say a mixed family that has an ex-wife or an ex-husband and stepchildren and biological children? As things get to be more complicated, that's when things tend to lean more towards needing a trust or something of that sort, so that you can start to create these sort of veils or firewalls that protect certain assets from different parties, and really just the parties from each other in dispute over these assets once someone passes away.
So I can generally say a trust is better when you have a more complicated situation?
It allows you more control. I am very hesitant to use better because everyone's situation is different.
Sure.
But one thing that a trust will do is give you more control and privacy. Privacy is really the best way to describe it.
Okay. You mentioned durable power of attorney. What does that get you?
So with the durable power of attorney, this is about who has the ability to act on your behalf. If you are incapacitated for some reason, or you need someone to be able to fill out paperwork, things like that, executing things typically is going to be in the financial space. So if you need someone to be able to speak to the bank on your behalf, if they can present that power of attorney, it'll be outlined in there whether or not you have permission to act on the behalf of that person. Same thing with any other financial institution. So if you just need to be able to pay bills, execute contracts, et cetera, that's what a power of attorney is for. Healthcare power of attorney is the same thing on the end of health issues. With any other financial situation for your durable power of attorney, it can also lean into healthcare power of attorney, but oftentimes people have those separate because the healthcare power of attorney can be more specific and broad in the healthcare realm.
And that's exactly what my next question was going to be. Can the healthcare power of attorney be rolled into the durable power of attorney?
Yes, it can.
All right. Do most people do that, or do they prefer to have them separate?
It depends, because you may have different people who can act on your behalf in different areas. So you may keep them separate. And like I said, the answers on this is always going to be sort of, it depends, just based on everyone's situation, because everyone's blueprint, their relationships and their finances and all of that is completely different.
Right. All right, then what about the advance directive? Tell me about that one.
Yep. So the advance directive is about what decisions can be made and what decisions would you like to be made in the event that you are still living but incapacitated or not able to make a decision. So your will can't be communicated at all. That, of course, is not anything that we're excited to discuss or think about, but very important, because as we know, these things do happen. This is, what are your wishes regarding medical treatment? It includes a living will and making sure that those wishes are carried out if you're not able to communicate them directly to the doctor yourself.
Okay. Moving on to your financial team. I never really thought of it as a financial team. And you say actually take inventory of this team, look at them every year, review it. Tell me how you would do that and why you would do that.
The big thing with your financial team, the players in your world that are working on your finances, and this is important because number one, you need to take inventory just to make sure that the relationship still serves you, that you still fit as a client for that professional, and that professional is still serving you in the way that you need to. This goes back to a couple of the things that we've talked about in part one, which is your life is evolving, your business is evolving, your family is evolving. All of the things in your life are living and breathing because it's your life. For that reason, your professional relationships are going to evolve over time as well. The reason that you want to look at this as a team, my favorite analogy is comparing your financial world and your financial plan to building a home. anyone's built a home, of course, every now and then you're going to have multiple contractors. Like, sure, there may be one amazing person or company that does everything, but oftentimes people have, a specialist that's going to do their bathroom and a specialist that's going to do their living room and bedroom, et cetera, right?
Right.
Kitchen. If all of those people are at the top of their game, they are fantastic at what they do. Let's say they're top 1%, but they have no conversation with each other about the rest of the plan, right?
Oh,
So your kitchen person builds the best kitchen imaginable in a silo, but your living room person didn't have a conversation with him. Your bathroom person didn't have a conversation with your living room person. So everyone's built these amazing things in one house that don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what you want to do with your financial team is figure out, are you positioning them to be able to have conversations with each other? And that's part of your responsibility, but you also want to work with people who are proactive about that and ask to be introduced. So your financial advisor should want to know your estate planning attorney and your CPA. If you have a tax accountant separate, you want to have these conversations. Your insurance agents, are they working together? Because the work that they do individually could make sense, but they could be missing valuable information that the others are holding. And what you want is to have your professionals sort of huddled around you, with you being the center of attention and having a plan that works together.
Now, if you are responsible for this, how do you find these people? Or do you have a financial professional who you hope will reach out for you?
Yeah, so that depends. Life is kind of funny this way, but oftentimes when I meet clients, they are typically working with someone, and the vast majority of them will put most of this trust into their CPA. CPAs tend to be, because everyone has to pay taxes.
Right.
CPAs have a very well-rounded view of what your financial picture looks like, because they have to touch your finances every year. Typically, they are people who a lot of folks will lean on for their referrals to other professionals. In our practice at Artisan, we are very proactive in finding out, like, hey, who do you work with already? Who's already helping you make these decisions? And we want to get introductions so that they can be aware of not just the decisions that we're making, but our process and methodology for how we're coming to these conclusions. How can we incorporate what you already know with the client's permission, and how we inform ourselves to make these decisions?
What do you do if you find that someone on the team seems to be dropping the ball?
That is not a fun situation, but because you want to respect relationships. And oftentimes, someone may be, they've been getting their taxes done by the same person for 30 years, or they've been working with the same attorney for 20 years. And it may be, a family friend, or sometimes a family member. It might be a brother-in-law or sister-in-law or something like that. You want to have conversations as honest as possible without being disrespectful, of course. Mm-hmm. And you want to ask questions is typically the best way to go about that. And again, it may not be of anyone's particular fault, but it may be a gap in understanding a different area that has nothing to do, or seemingly nothing to do, with what their specialty is. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why having that sort of open form of communication with the client at the center is critically important, so that everyone does understand what the right and left hand are doing and why.
If it's your brother-in-law, good luck, buddy.
Listen, I promise you, you're absolutely right. Good luck.
Now, we've talked in earlier episodes, too, about intergenerational money and transferring a business or a profession to another generation. Here we're talking money discussions. How do you even begin this?
This is one of those topics that are critically important for me. Like you said, we have discussed this in past episodes. Understanding, especially for those who are young professionals who are growing in their lives financially, socially, family-wise, as you're moving through life, how well your parents have planned or not planned is going to have an impact on you financially and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And having those conversations needs to happen as soon as possible, because the sooner you have the conversations, the wider the options are for what you can do to remedy the types of challenges that happen as you age. The older you get, the more restricted your options are. That is a new orientation for a lot of people. A lot of people are used to keeping those conversations separate. I don't talk about money with my family. I don't talk about money with my parents. I don't talk about money with my children. But from a financial planning perspective, that's a mistake. There's really no other way to describe it other than a mistake. And I say that knowing full well, again, that everyone's family dynamic and relationships are different,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very difficult to make smart decisions without all of the relevant information. Our relationships financially are entangled if you are parents, if you are children. So as early as possible.
All right, I'm going to take it from the child's perspective. Suppose the parent is getting up there. They've been working. They've established a business. They're doing really well, but they have never, ever broached the subject to the child about succession.
Mm-hmm.
How does the child bring that up?
The child, of course, is going to be at a disadvantage because the parent has information that they themselves have chosen to, for one reason or another, not to share yet. And there's no indication that they will at some point, right? The child, of course, is in a position where they maybe want to know and need to know what's going to happen next. Unfortunately, a lot of times the parents may not know because they haven't brought it up because they don't know what's going to happen next. They haven't been intentional about it. But as difficult and as uncomfortable as it is, I think you just have to bring it to them. And oftentimes it helps to have a professional to help facilitate that conversation. Now, what I would not advise is, say you're the child and your parents have not brought it up to you, have not had the conversation with you, and you have a professional that your parents don't work with, and you say, hey, my financial advisor or my accountant or my estate planning attorney says that we should all have a conversation. That could work, but what's much more effective is if your parents already have an advisor or advisors that they work with. Then you say, hey, if you don't mind, can we set some time aside with Ray or, John, whoever these advisors are,
Right.
to have this conversation? Because I've been working with my advisor and I feel like we have some blanks that we haven't been able to fill in yet.
If these conversations don't happen, is wealth lost?
Oftentimes, yes. Typically because there is a lot of missing information and instruction. There tends to be, if there is intention, the communication is lost of that intention. So what one generation would like to happen for the next generation doesn't happen because the next generation wasn't made privy to it. Unfortunately, if in many cases the communication doesn't happen because there is no intention, because no one bothered, because it's an uncomfortable topic to do the planning. No one wants to think about, well, what happens if I'm getting older, but I feel fine today, but what if I have a stroke next week? Or, I feel fine today, but what if I had a heart attack and passed away? What if I got hit by the proverbial bus? Whatever it is, no one wants to think about those negative outcome situations. And oftentimes we allow ourselves to just push that to the back of our minds. We know that it's important. We know that it's not helpful to avoid it, but it's just a painful exercise to go through. It's uncomfortable. And it's even more uncomfortable to talk to the people that we love about our own vulnerability and mortality.
True. Very true. Saving and investing. Should you start it right away? If you haven't done it, can you always start?
Yes, absolutely. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But if you have not done it, you need to start planting the seeds right now. This is for all of the people who feel like they need to check 30 other boxes before they start to save and invest. Well, I need to pay all my debt down. I need to do this. I need to do that. I understand the need to feel like you want to pay debt down and all of those things. And you should be paying debt down. But one of the mistakes that people make is they will overservice paying their debt and they won't leave themselves with anything saved. They won't start that process. Compound interest and time, the amount of time that you spend saving has a tremendous impact on where you end up. And I always tell people to check out a cost of waiting calculator. You can Google cost of waiting calculator and you can play with a bunch of different scenarios that say, well, if I start saving even $100 a month at age 21 versus if I started doing that same amount at age 31, where you'd end up 20 years from then. And so play around with those scenarios to get an understanding of how important it is to start early, whether it's small, large, whatever. Start early, be consistent, and keep doing it. Keep saving, keep investing.
But if you haven't started early, is it okay? I mean, is it okay to do it now?
Absolutely. It's imperative to do it now, even more so.
All right. And this final number 10 of your 10 points here, I look at this and it's easy to say, it ain't easy to do. Commit to take the action.
Yes. Commit to taking action. It's the beginning of the year. Everybody's fired up. Everybody's convinced that this year is going to be different than last year. And boy, don't we hope it in 2021. But in all seriousness, it is very easy to let the fire and the passion fuel you for a little bit and then drop off. One of my roles as an advisor, I feel, is to be an objective accountability partner. People live their lives and they go about doing the things that are important to them and dealing with things as they come day to day. Part of my job, my responsibility for my clients and the people that I work with every day, while you're doing your job that has nothing to do with this, even though it's critically important, part of my job is to remind you that we have things to do. That's part of what it takes to take action, is to have an accountability partner that is objective and not subjective. While I care deeply about my clients, I'm not emotional about the things that need to be done because I know that they need to be done.
How often do you prod someone?
As part of the normal planning process, I have 4 touch points per year, once per quarter. And one of those quarterly check-ins with my clients is a full financial review. So we're going through a full checklist to update and track progress based on past planning and to discuss new outcomes and events that are affecting future planning. A part of that is sort of like a diagnostic check on your vehicle when you take it in for a checkup. I've got a rubric where I'm looking to see where are we as far as your financial ratios go, where are we as far as the debt you're servicing, your cash flow, your savings rate, how much are you putting away, if something has changed, why, and is it something that we need to materially change your plan for, either permanently or temporarily. So at least 4 times a year, we're touching base. And for some people, it may be much more frequently than that, just based on the nature of what their situation is and what's happening in their life. That keeps us on track.
Mm-hmm. This is kind of a personal question now. When you meet people and you're working with them, in your gut, do you know who is going to keep up with the commitment and remain accountable and who's going to kind of slide off?
To an extent, you get a good idea. The good thing is that oftentimes I'm working with couples, and rarely is that true for both people in a family. So what you end up getting is a good feel for like who's going to be the person who stays on top of it. Rarely do I end up speaking with someone who is just altogether disinterested, because I can't work with people like that. It's your plan. We've got to have open communication. We've got to both be committed. Of course, some are much more committed and on it than others. Rarely am I working with someone who is contentious, because quite frankly, I don't want to run that type of business. I'm not herding cats here. So
Right. How can a listener reach you, Adam?
You can reach me at atolliver@artisanfsonline.com.
And that is Adam Tolliver of Artisan Financial Strategies. Remember, this is the second of a two-part series, so be sure to listen to the first installment and, of course, all the episodes of Adam's podcast, The Business That Pays. Just subscribe with the subscribe button here. You can also share with the share button. I'm Patrice Sikora, and let's talk again later.
Thank you for listening to Business That Pays. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Artisan Financial Strategies or Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial professional provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment strategies.
Adam Tolliver, registered representative offering securities through New York Life Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a licensed insurance agency. 1125 Cambridge Square, Suite C, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30009, 404-210-9311. Financial advisor offering investment advisory services through Eagle Strategies, LLC, a registered investment advisor. New York Life Securities, LLC, and Eagle Strategies, LLC are New York Life companies. Artisan Financial Strategies, LLC, is not owned or operated by New York Life Securities, LLC, or its affiliates. Neither Artisan Financial Strategies, LLC, nor its advisors provide tax, legal, or accounting advice.